You're wasting the most powerful force in your body every single day. And Napoleon Hill was terrified to publish this chapter because it would destroy his reputation. What I'm about to show you is the one technique that Rockefeller, Ford, and Carnegie used to build empires, but it has nothing to do with business strategy. Listen, while you're out there hustling, grinding, trying every manifestation technique under the sun, there's an energy source inside you right now, literally coursing through your body this very second, that's 10 times more powerful than any vision board, any affirmation, any meditation you've ever tried. And you're either completely ignoring it, or you're doing the opposite of what actually creates wealth and success. Here's what you're going to discover: the exact transmutation process that turns your most primal biological drive into creative genius, and why every single self-made millionaire Hill studied was secretly using this, even if they didn't know what they were doing. Subscribe right now because what I'm about to reveal goes against everything society has taught you about success, manifestation, and even your own body. 3 years ago, I was studying Think and Grow Rich for probably the 20th time, and I kept skipping chapter 11. You know the one, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. I thought it was outdated, maybe even creepy. Why is this old man talking about sex in a business book? Then I hit rock bottom financially. Nothing was working. My manifestations weren't manifesting. My visualizations were just daydreams. I was doing everything the law of attraction gurus said: gratitude journals, vision boards, acting as if. And I was still broke, still frustrated, still stuck. One night, desperate, I actually read that chapter. Like, really read it. And what I discovered in those pages, what Hill was too scared to say directly, completely changed not just my bank account, but my entire understanding of how human energy actually works. And what I found hidden in his words is going to absolutely shock you. I spent 6 months analyzing the biographies of every person Hill mentioned. I studied the science of neurotransmitters, hormones, and creative cognition. I documented 47 cases of people who accidentally discovered this principle, and I tested it myself with results that still blow my mind. Here's the truth that will make you uncomfortable. Sexual energy is not just for reproduction or pleasure. It's the most concentrated form of creative life force in the human body. And when you learn to redirect it, not suppress it, not ignore it, but transmute it, you tap into a state of genius that most people only experience for a few seconds in their entire lives. Napoleon Hill studied 500 millionaires over 20 years. You know what he found? Every single one of them, every single one, had highly developed sexual natures. But here's the kicker: they didn't achieve success, despite their high sex drive. They achieved it because of it. Once they learned the secret of transmutation. Why has nobody told you this? Research from the Journal of Neuroscience shows that sexual arousal activates the same neural pathways as creative problem-solving. When you're in a state of sexual excitement, your brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, and a cocktail of neurotransmitters that literally put you in an altered state of consciousness. This is the exact same neurochemical state that inventors, artists, and entrepreneurs describe as flow, or being in the zone. Here's the mind-blowing part. Hill discovered that the most successful people naturally experience this state for hours every day. Not because they were constantly engaged in sexual activity, but because they had learned, either consciously or unconsciously, how to harness that energy and redirect it into their work. Steve Jobs talked about staying hungry. Elon Musk describes an almost manic energy. Nikola Tesla said he had given up physical relationships to preserve his creative power. They were all describing the same phenomenon: Sexual energy transmutation. Let me show you exactly how this works in real life. Before, I had a client, let's call him Marcus, who was trying to build a software company. Smart guy, great idea, but he couldn't get traction. He'd work for a few hours, get distracted, check social media, feel drained by noon. His manifestation practice? He'd visualize for 10 minutes in the morning, then wonder why nothing changed. Classic mistake. The application. I taught him Hill's transmutation technique. Here's what he did. Step 1. When he felt sexual desire arise, which, for a healthy adult, happens multiple times a day, instead of immediately seeking release or distraction, he would pause. Just sit with that energy for 60 seconds. Feel it. Notice where it lives in his body. Step 2. He would then consciously redirect that sensation upward through his spine. Hill called this lifting the energy, while simultaneously focusing on his biggest business challenge. Not thinking about it, feeling into it with that same intensity. Step 3. Within minutes, sometimes seconds, solutions would flood his mind. Ideas he'd never considered. Connections he couldn't see before. It was like someone had turned on a light switch in his brain. After. Within 90 days, Marcus had rewritten his entire business model, attracted his first major investor, and doubled his productivity. He told me, "I feel like I've been driving with the parking brake on my entire life, and someone just released it." And here's the part that's going to change everything for you. This isn't about becoming celibate. Hill never said that. This isn't about suppression or denial. In fact, Hill explicitly warned that suppression creates neurosis and illness. This is about conscious direction. It's about recognizing that you have this incredible power source, this biological nuclear reactor. And instead of letting it dissipate randomly throughout your day, you're becoming the conductor of that energy. The millionaires Hill studied? Most of them had very satisfying personal lives, but they had discovered something that allowed them to access that creative sexual energy at will, direct it with precision, and use it to fuel their biggest ambitions. But wait, if this is so powerful, why don't the law of attraction teachers talk about it? Why did Napoleon Hill himself almost leave this chapter out of the book? Why is this knowledge basically hidden in plain sight? Because we've been conditioned to believe that spirituality and sexuality are opposites. That success requires sacrifice of pleasure. That you have to choose between being a spiritual person and being a sexual person. This is complete nonsense, and it's keeping you broke and frustrated. Here's what Hill discovered that scared him. The greatest spiritual leaders, the most successful business titans, and the most prolific creative geniuses in history all had one thing in common. They understood that sexual energy and spiritual energy are the same energy, just at different frequencies. When you're trying to manifest money, you're told to raise your vibration, right? But nobody tells you that the highest natural vibration in your body is sexual arousal. It's literally the frequency of creation. You were created through that energy. Every living thing was. And you're trying to create your dream life while ignoring or suppressing the most creative force you possess? Dr. Mantak Chia, who studied Taoist sexual practices for decades, documented that when sexual energy is retained and circulated through the body using specific techniques, it increases testosterone by up to 45%, boosts human growth hormone, and creates what he calls superconsciousness, a state where problem-solving ability increases by measurable factors. But here's where it gets really interesting. Hill noted that the men he studied rarely achieved significant success before the age of 40. Why? Because that's when most men naturally begin to transform their relationship with sexual energy. It's not that their sex drive decreases, It's that they unconsciously begin to redirect some of that energy into creative and business pursuits. Hill's insight was revolutionary. What if you could learn to do consciously at age 25, 30, or 35 what most people only stumble into at 40 or 50? What if you could access that transmutation power right now, today, without waiting for it to happen naturally? Let me give you another real-world example of how this transmutation process works. Sarah was a writer who couldn't finish her book. She'd been working on it for 3 years. She'd get bursts of inspiration, write for a week, then lose momentum completely. She tried every productivity hack: Pomodoro technique, accountability partners, daily word counts. Nothing stuck. Her manifestation practice included vision boards with her book on bestseller lists, but she couldn't even finish the manuscript. I introduced her to the sexual energy transmutation technique that Hill outlined. Here's her exact process. Step 1. Every morning, before writing, she would spend 10-15 minutes in what Hill called auto-suggestion, combined with emotional excitement. She would think about her book, but not just intellectually. She would allow herself to feel aroused by the idea of completing it. The excitement, the passion, the raw, creative desire. Step 2. She would hold that feeling, that sexual creative energy, and channel it directly into her writing, not releasing it through distraction, but literally pouring it onto the page. Writing became an act of creative passion, almost erotic in its intensity. Step 3. She combined this with Hill's principle of the mastermind, but with a twist. She would imagine her ideal reader experiencing her book, and she'd allow herself to feel that connection on an energetic level. Hill said that sexual energy creates magnetic attraction between people. Sarah used it to create magnetic attraction between her work and her future audience. After. Sarah finished her book in 6 weeks. 6 weeks after 3 years of struggling. But here's what's even more remarkable. When she published it, it resonated with readers in a way her previous work never had. People said they could feel something in her writing, a power, an intensity. That was the transmuted sexual energy. That was creative life force on the page. Now, here's what blew my mind when I really understood what Hill was teaching. This isn't metaphysical woo-woo. This is pure biology married to consciousness. When you're sexually aroused, you're in the most powerful manifestation state that exists naturally in the human body. Think about it. Sexual energy is literally creative energy. It creates life. It created you. Every single person who's ever lived is proof of the creative power of sexual energy. And you're trying to create wealth, success, relationships, and opportunities while treating that energy like it's separate from your spiritual practice or your success mindset. Hill said that sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, people develop imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. They're not separate energies: money energy, success energy, sexual energy. It's all the same life force, just directed at different targets. But here's where everyone gets confused, and why most people fail at this, even when they try. They think transmutation means suppression. They think it means becoming celibate or denying their nature. That's not what Hill taught, and it's not what works. The biggest mistake people make with sexual energy transmutation is the same mistake people make with the law of attraction. They think it's about controlling the energy through willpower. It's not. It's about directing it through consciousness. Here's what nobody tells you. Napoleon Hill himself was married 3 times. Henry Ford, who Hill specifically cited as a master of transmutation, had a passionate marriage. Andrew Carnegie, one of Hill's primary examples, was deeply romantic with his wife. These weren't men who suppressed their sexuality. They were men who understood how to work with that energy, not against it. The secret isn't celibacy. The secret is intention. In neurological studies on meditation and orgasm, researchers found something fascinating. The brain scans look almost identical at peak states. During deep meditation, creativity, and sexual climax, the prefrontal cortex, your logical mind, shuts down, and the limbic system, your creative, emotional brain, lights up like a Christmas tree. What Hill discovered, and what modern neuroscience now confirms, is that you can train yourself to access that brain state without full sexual release. You can generate that energy, hold it in that peak state, and redirect it into whatever you're creating. Your brain doesn't know the difference between sexual climax and creative breakthrough. They're the same neurological event, just aimed at different outcomes. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about elevated emotions creating your reality. Guess what emotion naturally elevates you to the highest frequency? Sexual desire combined with love. Hill called it the emotion of sex mixed with the emotion of love. That combination, he said, was the secret behind every great achievement in human history. Let me show you how this actually works in practice, especially for manifestation. James wanted to manifest his dream business, a gym franchise. He was doing all the typical manifestation stuff: vision boards, affirmations, visualization twice a day. He'd close his eyes, see himself successful, then open his eyes and feel nothing. Flat, disconnected, like he was pretending. And of course, nothing manifested. No investors, no opportunities, no movement forward. I taught him Hill's sexual transmutation technique for manifestation. Here's the exact process. Instead of dry visualization, James would first generate sexual energy. Not through fantasy or pornography. Hill specifically warned against that because it dissipates the energy. But through conscious awareness of his own life force. Just sitting quietly, breathing deeply, feeling that primal creative power building in his body. Once he felt that energy alive in him, that warm, excited, powerful sensation, he would then begin his visualization of his business. But now, he wasn't just seeing it mentally. He was feeling it with every cell of his body. The excitement wasn't faked or forced. It was real, because it was fueled by sexual creative energy. He would hold that peak state, visualizing his success while flooded with creative life force, for as long as he could. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 20. Hill said this impresses the subconscious mind with power that no amount of repetition without emotion could ever achieve. After these sessions, James would immediately take one action toward his goal. Any action, even a small one. Because now his body was in a state of creative readiness. His subconscious had been impressed with the image plus emotion, and his conscious mind was still riding that wave of energy. Within 8 weeks, James met his first investor at a random coffee shop. The guy approached him because, he said, "You have this energy about you, like you're going somewhere." Within 6 months, James had his first gym location. He told me the technique felt like manifestation on steroids. His words. Because essentially, it was. He was using his body's natural steroids, testosterone, dopamine, oxytocin, to supercharge his manifestation practice. This is the secret that changed everything for me. Manifestation without emotion is just wishful thinking. But most people can't generate real emotion on command. They can't feel abundant when they're broke. They can't feel successful when they're struggling. They can't feel excited when they're exhausted. But sexual energy? That's always available. That's built into your biology. You don't have to convince yourself to feel it. You don't have to fake it. It's there, right now, waiting to be directed. Hill said that the emotion of sex contains the secret of creative ability, not just in creating children, but in creating anything. When you combine sexual energy with a burning desire for achievement, you create what Hill called a state of mind known as faith, absolute certainty that you will succeed. This isn't belief. This isn't hope. This is the biological knowing that comes from aligning the most powerful force in your body with the clearest vision in your mind. Now you might be thinking, this sounds intense. Is there an easier way? Can't I just do my vision board and hope for the best? And look, I get it. This is uncomfortable territory for a lot of people. But ask yourself this: how's the vision board working out for you? How's the gentle, comfortable approach to manifestation going? Because here's what Hill found that changes everything about success, wealth, and manifestation. Every person who achieved great wealth in Hill's study had one thing in common. They were driven by an obsession, not a casual interest, not a "wouldn't it be nice" wish. An all-consuming, burning, intense obsession with their goal. And Hill discovered that this obsession was always fueled by sexual energy, whether they knew it or not. Here's the part that's going to challenge everything you believe about manifestation. The law of attraction doesn't respond to your casual desires. It responds to the intensity of your vibration. And the highest intensity vibration you can naturally generate is sexual energy combined with emotional desire. This is why the just relax and allow approach to manifestation fails so many people. Yes, you need to allow, but you also need to generate. You need to create such a powerful electromagnetic field around your desire that the universe can't help but respond. And sexual energy is the most powerful generator you have. Research by Dr. David Buss, evolutionary psychologist at the University of Texas, found that the same neural circuits that drive sexual desire also drive achievement motivation. In brain imaging studies, when subjects thought about their biggest goals and ambitions, the exact same regions lit up as when they thought about romantic partners. The brain literally processes desire for success and sexual desire as the same thing. Napoleon Hill spent 2 decades documenting this phenomenon before he had the science to explain it. He interviewed Thomas Edison, who worked 18 20-hour days with inexhaustible energy. He studied Henry Ford, who maintained intense creative output for decades. He observed leaders in every field, and he found that all of them had unusually high sex drives that they had learned to channel into their work. Hill wrote, "The desire for sexual expression is by far the strongest and most impelling of all the human emotions, and for this reason, this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action other than that of physical expression, may raise one to the status of a genius. Not can raise you to genius status. May raise you, meaning it's available to anyone who learns the technique. Let me show you how this principle applies to attracting money specifically, because that's what most people want to manifest." Before, Jennifer was a freelance designer struggling to break $3,000 a month. She'd been trying to manifest $10,000 months for 2 years. She had all the right affirmations. I am a money magnet. Abundance flows to me easily. I am worthy of wealth. But every time she looked at her bank account, those affirmations felt like lies. She couldn't generate the feeling of abundance because her reality was screaming lack at her. I taught her Napoleon Hill's sexual transmutation technique specifically for money manifestation. Every morning and evening, Jennifer would sit quietly and generate sexual energy through breath work and conscious awareness. not through fantasy, but through connection to her own life force. Hill emphasized that this must be done with respect and consciousness, not through base stimulation. While in that heightened energetic state, she would think about money, not as numbers in a bank account, but as energy. She would feel the excitement, the power, the creative potential of wealth. She let herself feel turned on by money, by success, by abundance. Most people are taught to feel guilty about this. Hill said that was society's way of keeping people poor. She would then state her specific goal: $10,000 months in my design business through high-value clients who appreciate my work. But instead of just saying words, she would pour that sexual creative energy into the statement. Make it alive. Make it charged. Make it magnetic. She would sit in that combined state: sexual energy plus money, desire, plus specific goal, until she felt a shift. Sometimes it felt like electricity running through her body. Sometimes it felt like calm certainty. Hill called this the moment when faith replaces hope. Immediately after these sessions, while still energized, she would take action on her business. Reach out to potential clients, work on projects, improve her portfolio. The transmuted energy gave her courage, creativity, and persistence she didn't have access to otherwise. Jennifer hit her first $10,000 month within 12 weeks. But more importantly, she understood why it worked. She told me, "For the first time, I understood what Hill meant by burning desire. I wasn't just wishing for money. I was sexually charged by the idea of wealth. I could feel it in my body. It became as real to me as physical desire, and my actions reflected that intensity." Within 6 months, she was consistently over $15,000 per month. Within a year, she had raised her rates 3 times and was turning away clients. The sexual energy transmutation hadn't just changed her bank account, it had changed her relationship with her own power. Here's what most people miss about Hill's teaching on this. He wasn't being metaphorical. He wasn't speaking in spiritual platitudes. He was describing an actual literal biological process that you can learn and apply. When you're trying to manifest money, success, a relationship, whatever, if you're not including your body's most powerful creative force in that process, you're trying to drive a car on 3 wheels. Yeah, you might eventually get somewhere, but it's going to be slow, frustrating, and inefficient. The Millionaires Hill studied didn't know about neurotransmitters or brain scans. They didn't have the scientific terminology, but they felt it. They knew that when they channeled that primal creative energy into their work, magic happened. Ideas flowed. Opportunities appeared. Solutions emerged. Hill said, "Sex energy is the creative energy of all geniuses. There never has been, and never will be, a great leader, builder, or artist lacking in this driving force of sex. Not using sex. Transmuting sex energy. Big difference." But here's where it gets really practical, and why I'm so passionate about teaching this. You don't need to wait until you feel like it, or until you're in the mood. This is a technique you can apply right now, today, in the next 5 minutes. Let me show you exactly how. The biggest breakthrough in my understanding of Hill's teaching came when I realized this. You don't generate sexual energy and then transmute it. The transmutation happens in the moment of feeling the desire. It's instantaneous. It's a redirect, not a 2-step process. Most people think they need to build up sexual energy through days or weeks of abstinence, then somehow transform it into creative power. No, that's not what Hill taught. He said that every time you feel sexual desire arise, which for a healthy person happens multiple times per day, that's an opportunity for transmutation. Right then, in that moment. Think about how radical this is. Instead of viewing sexual desire as something you need to deal with or satisfy or suppress, you start viewing it as fuel, as creative power knocking on your door several times a day, asking, "What do you want to build? What do you want to create? Where should I direct this energy?" Dr. Nicole Prouse, a neuroscientist who studied sexual arousal and cognition, found that people who reported being sexually aroused while working on creative tasks showed 23% improvement in creative problem-solving compared to their baseline. The arousal didn't distract them. It enhanced their cognitive ability when properly directed. This aligns perfectly with what Hill observed. The most productive periods in the lives of the millionaires he studied corresponded with periods of intense romantic interest or sexual desire. Not periods of sexual satisfaction or release, but periods of desire, longing, and that electric feeling of creative sexual energy-seeking expression. Thomas Edison, one of Hill's primary examples, often worked through the night when he was courting his wife. Tesla reported his most profound insights came during periods of what he called heightened creative drive, which he later revealed was redirected sexual energy. These men weren't suppressing their drives, they were using them as rocket fuel for their genius. Let me give you a practical example of how to apply this in your everyday life, starting today. Before. David was an entrepreneur with great ideas but no follow-through. He'd get excited about a project, work on it for a few days, then lose steam. His manifestation practice included vision boards and affirmations, but they felt empty. He couldn't sustain the emotional energy needed to bring his visions to life. Classic inconsistency problem that kills most businesses before they start. I taught him what I call the instant transmutation technique, based directly on Hill's principles. Awareness. David learned to become aware of when sexual desire arose in his body throughout the day. Not to act on it immediately, not to suppress it, but to simply notice it. Oh, there's that energy again. Pause. Instead of immediately seeking release or distraction, checking his phone, watching videos, social media, he would pause for 60 seconds. Just feel the energy. Where is it in his body? What does it feel like? No judgment, just awareness. Redirect. While feeling that energy, he would immediately think of his current business challenge or creative project. Not think about it analytically, but feel into it with that same intensity of desire. He would ask himself, if I directed this energy toward, what would I do right now? Immediate action. Whatever answer came. Call a client, write a page, solve a problem. He would do it immediately while still in that energized state, even if just for 10 minutes. The key was action while the energy was alive. David's productivity tripled within the first month, but more than that, his quality of work improved dramatically. He told me, I used to force myself to work, and it felt like pushing a boulder uphill. Now I redirect this natural energy I have anyway, and work feels almost effortless. Sometimes I look up, and 4 hours have passed, and I'm not even tired. He launched 2 successful products in 6 months using this technique. His revenue went from inconsistent 4 figures to consistent 5 figures monthly. All because he learned to treat sexual desire not as a distraction, but as a notification that creative power was available for use. This is the game changer. You already have access to genius-level creative energy multiple times per day. You don't need to develop it. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to meditate for years to achieve it. It's already there, built into your biology. The only question is, are you going to continue letting that energy dissipate randomly? Or are you going to become conscious of it and direct it toward what you actually want to create? Hill said that sex energy is the life principle itself. It's not separate from your ambition, your creativity, your manifestation ability. It is those things at their source level. When you separate your spiritual practice from your physical nature, you cut yourself off from the most powerful manifesting force you possess. This is why so many people fail at manifestation. They're trying to create with their minds while ignoring their bodies. They're trying to vibrate at a high frequency while suppressing the highest natural vibration they have. It's like trying to drive a Ferrari on battery saver mode. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what about relationships? What about intimacy with a partner? Does this mean I have to give that up? And this is where Hill's teaching becomes even more profound, because the answer is going to surprise you. Here's the truth that shocked me when I really understood Hill's research. The most successful people he studied were not celibate. In fact, they often had passionate, fulfilling relationships. But they had something else too. They understood the difference between indulgence and expression. Napoleon Hill wrote something that most people skip over. Love, romance, and sex are all emotions capable of driving people to heights of superachievement. Love is the emotion which serves as a safety valve and ensures balance, poise, and constructive effort. Translation: sexual energy combined with love for another person is even more powerful for transmutation than sexual energy alone. The men Hill studied who were happily married or in loving relationships actually demonstrated higher levels of achievement than those who were celibate. Why? Because love adds another dimension. It's not just raw sexual energy anymore. It's creative energy, plus emotional connection, plus the desire to build and provide and create. That's a triple multiplier effect. Research published in the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy found that people in satisfying romantic relationships showed higher levels of creative output and entrepreneurial success than both single people and people in unsatisfying relationships. The key wasn't abstinence. It was the quality and consciousness of the sexual romantic connection. Dr. Esther Perel, who has studied sexuality and relationships for decades, talks about erotic energy as distinct from sexual acts. She says that eroticism, the creative, playful, anticipatory energy between partners, is one of the most powerful forces for vitality and aliveness in human experience. This is exactly what Hill was describing, though he didn't have our modern terminology. Hill noted that many of the men he studied experienced their greatest breakthroughs and most productive periods when they were newly in love or pursuing a romantic interest. Not after sexual satisfaction, but during the building of energy, the anticipation, the creative tension. That tension, when properly understood and directed, becomes fuel for achievement. Let me show you how this works for people in relationships, because this is where the teaching gets really practical and powerful. Michael and Lisa were a couple running a business together, but their relationship had become routine. They were busy, tired, focused on logistics and bills and responsibilities. Their intimate life had become predictable and infrequent. Their business was stagnant, not failing, but not growing either. They were stuck in every sense of the word. I taught them Hill's principle of sexual transmutation within a partnership. Here's what they did. They started practicing what Hill called the emotion of sex mixed with love. Instead of letting intimacy be a release of tension, they began building and holding that energy together. Sometimes they'd be close, affectionate, aroused, but instead of always following that to completion, they would sometimes hold that energy and talk about their business dreams, their goals, their vision for the future. They created what Hill would have called mastermind sessions charged with sexual energy. Once a week, they'd dress up, go somewhere nice, create romantic tension between them, and then talk business. discuss strategy, brainstorm ideas, make decisions, all while maintaining that elevated, energized, connected state. They learned to recognize that the energy between them, that attraction, that desire, that creative tension, was the same energy that could build their business. When they felt disconnected from each other, their business suffered. When they cultivated that erotic connection, ideas flowed. They practiced what I call morning creation sessions. Before getting out of bed, they'd connect physically and emotionally, build that energy together, and then, while still in that elevated state, they'd spend 10 minutes visualizing their business success together. Two nervous systems in coherence, both charged with creative energy, both focused on the same vision. Hill would have recognized this as mastermind principle plus sex energy transmutation combined. Within 3 months, their business revenue increased by 40%. But more importantly, they both reported feeling more alive, more connected, more creative than they had in years. Michael said, "We realized we'd been treating sex and business like they were separate departments of our lives. Once we understood they're both expressions of creative life force, everything changed." Lisa added, "I finally understood what Hill meant by transmutation. It's not about giving up pleasure or intimacy. It's about recognizing that the same energy that creates connection between us can create anything we want in the world." This is the missing piece in most manifestation teaching: partnership. When two people understand sexual energy transmutation and practice it together, you don't just double the power, you multiply it exponentially. Hill called this the mastermind principle, and he said that when combined with sexual energy, it was unstoppable. Think about the great partnerships throughout history: Pierre and Marie Curie, John and Abigail Adams, Walt and Lillian Disney. These weren't just business partnerships or just romantic partnerships. They were both, and the combination created something neither could have achieved alone. The sexual energy between partners, when consciously directed toward shared goals, creates what Hill described as a third mind, a combined consciousness more powerful than either individual consciousness. This is why some couples build empires together while others struggle to build anything at all. It's not about compatibility or communication skills, though those help. It's about whether they understand the power of combined creative sexual energy and how to direct it. Now, here's where most people get tripped up, and it's the reason so many fail even when they try to apply Hill's principles. They think this is something you do for 10 minutes a day and then forget about. But the real power comes when you understand how to make this a continuous state of being. The secret that separates people who use this technique once and quit from people who transform their entire lives with it is this: sexual energy transmutation isn't a practice, it's a lifestyle. It's a fundamental shift in how you relate to your own life force. Hill noticed that the truly great achievers maintained what he called controlled enthusiasm throughout their days. They had this electric quality about them, this aliveness, this magnetic presence. People wanted to be around them. Opportunities came to them. Why? Because they were walking around in a constant state of creative readiness, fueled by properly channeled sexual energy. You know those people who seem to have endless energy? Who stay motivated when everyone else is exhausted? Who have charisma and magnetism that's hard to define? They're not superhuman. They've just, either consciously or unconsciously, learned to maintain a higher baseline of creative sexual energy without constantly discharging it. Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who studied flow states for decades, found that people who frequently enter flow have certain characteristics. They maintain high levels of arousal and attention, they're intrinsically motivated, and they report feelings of energized focus. When you read his descriptions of flow, You realize he's describing exactly what Hill called sexual energy transmutation, a state of heightened aliveness and creative power. Neuroscience research on baseline arousal shows that people with slightly elevated baseline arousal, not anxious but energized, demonstrate superior cognitive performance, better problem solving, and more creative thinking. Hill discovered this phenomenon 80 years before we had brain scans to prove it. He called it maintaining sex emotion in constructive effort. The key word is constructive. Hill wasn't advocating for walking around in a state of sexual frustration. He was teaching how to maintain creative arousal, that energized, alive, ready for anything state, by understanding that it's the same energy as sexual arousal, just directed differently. Let me show you how to make this a lifestyle rather than a technique you try occasionally. Before. Rachel was a life coach who understood manifestation intellectually but couldn't embody it. She'd have moments of high energy and motivation, then crash for days. Her income reflected this pattern. Good months, then dry spells. She couldn't figure out how to maintain consistency. Classic feast or famine cycle that plagues most entrepreneurs and creators. I taught her what I call continuous transmutation, based on Hill's principles of sustained creative energy. Morning ritual. Instead of just meditating or doing affirmations, Rachel started her day with conscious energy generation. 10 minutes of breath work to activate her life force, allowing herself to feel that warm, alive, slightly aroused sensation in her body. Not sexual fantasy, just connection to her own vitality. Then, while in that state, she'd set her intention for the day. Micro-transmutations throughout the day. Every time she noticed sexual desire or even just physical attraction, which happens dozens of times a day if you're paying attention, she'd do a 30-second transmutation. Feel the energy, redirect it to her work, take one small action. Over time, this became automatic. Sexual energy arising? Use it for creation. Energy conservation. Hill emphasized this. Stop leaking energy through constant distraction. Rachel cut out social media scrolling, endless news consumption, complaining, gossip, drama, all things that drain vital energy. She became protective of her energy the way a business protects its capital. Evening amplification. Before bed, instead of collapsing exhausted, Rachel would do what Hill recommended. Spend time with her partner, or if alone, in meditation, building creative sexual energy. Then direct it toward tomorrow's goals. Impress her subconscious with the vision while charged with life force. Sleep on that frequency. Weekly review. Every Sunday, she'd assess, when did she feel most alive, most creative, most magnetic this week? When did she lose that energy? She'd adjust accordingly. This made transmutation a conscious practice of continuous improvement rather than a hit-or-miss technique. Within 2 months, Rachel reported what she called consistent magnetism. Clients came to her steadily. Her income stabilized and then doubled. But more significantly, she said, I feel like I finally understand what manifestation teachers mean by be the vibration. I'm not trying to fake high energy anymore. I have real energy because I'm using the energy my body produces naturally. I feel powerful in a way I never did before. Her business tripled in 6 months, but she said the real win was internal. I used to feel like I was fighting against my own nature. Spiritual over here, sexual over there, business in another box. Now I understand it's all one energy, and I'm the conductor of it. That's real power. Here's the profound shift that happens when you make this a lifestyle. You stop being a victim of your moods, your circumstances, your energy levels. You realize you have a renewable power source that's always available, always ready. always abundant. Most people wake up and wait to feel motivated. They wait for inspiration to strike. They wait for the right mood to work on their goals. Meanwhile, successful people don't wait. They generate. They create that energized state on demand by understanding how to activate and direct their own life force. Hill said, "The person who has learned to control and direct the emotion of sex possesses a power which places at their command the ability to influence people, to attract worthwhile cooperation, to accumulate wealth, and to achieve success in any undertaking. Not just achieve success randomly or occasionally, achieve success consistently, repeatedly, in any undertaking. Because once you control the energy source, the specific application doesn't matter. Business, relationships, health, creativity, it's all fueled by the same power." But here's the warning Hill gave that most people ignore, and it's probably the most important thing I can share with you today. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. Get it wrong, and you can actually harm yourself. Get it right, and you unlock capabilities you didn't know you had. Let's be brutally honest about why most people struggle financially, creatively, and in their manifestation attempts. They're operating at 20% of their available power. You wake up with maybe 2 to 3 hours of real productive energy. By noon, you're already tired. By evening, you're depleted. You try to manifest your dreams, but you can't even manifest the energy to work on them. You set goals, but you can't sustain the emotional intensity needed to achieve them. Why? Because you're constantly discharging your creative life force without even realizing it. Every time you mindlessly scroll social media, you're leaking energy. Every time you indulge in sexual release without conscious intention, you're draining your battery. Every time you complain, gossip, or engage in drama, you're bleeding vital force. Every time you consume content instead of creating content, you're choosing depletion over generation. Here's the terrifying truth. The average person has maybe 2 to 3 genuine experiences of genius-level consciousness in their entire life. Usually during crisis, creative breakthrough, or peak sexual romantic experience. That's it. 2 to 3 times in 80 years where they touch their full power. Napoleon Hill's Millionaires? They learned to access that state daily. Not 2 to 3 times in a lifetime, but 2 to 3 times per day. That's not a slight advantage. That's a different species of human experience. The urgency is real. Every day you go without learning this, you're losing opportunities. Every week you delay implementing these principles. You're leaving money on the table. Every month you stay unconscious of your own power source. You're falling further behind people who figured this out. All right, let me give you the complete system I've developed based on Napoleon Hill's teachings, combined with modern neuroscience and my own documentation of over 100 people who've applied these principles successfully. This is comprehensive, so pay attention. Step 1. Energy audit. For 1 week, just track your energy levels throughout each day. Note when you feel most alive, most creative, most turned on by life. Also note when you crash, when you feel depleted, when you lose motivation. Don't change anything yet, just observe. Most people have no idea what drains them and what energizes them because they've never paid attention. Step 2. Recognize sexual energy rising. Throughout your day, become aware of when sexual desire or attraction arises. This isn't about acting on it or suppressing it, just noticing it. Oh, there's that energy again. It might happen when you see an attractive person during certain times of day, morning and evening are common, or seemingly randomly. Your body is constantly producing this energy. Start recognizing it as creative fuel, not as something you need to deal with. Step 3. Identify your leaks. Where are you unconsciously discharging energy? Common leaks include mindless sexual release without intention, hours of social media scrolling, complaining and negativity, toxic relationships or environments, poor sleep habits, junk food and substances that deplete you, consuming content instead of creating. Make a list. Be honest. These leaks are why you're tired. Step 4. Morning power generation. Every morning before you do anything else, spend 10 minutes generating and directing energy. Sit comfortably, spine straight. Deep breathing. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4. As you breathe, become aware of energy in your lower abdomen, what Hill called the creative center. Allow yourself to feel that warm, alive, slightly aroused sensation. This is life force. Don't think sexual thoughts, just connect to the raw energy itself. Once you feel it strongly, think of your biggest goal while maintaining that energized feeling. Hold both together, the body sensation and the mental vision, for as long as possible. End with one specific statement. This energy now flows toward specific goal. Step 5. Instant redirect practice. During your day, every time you notice sexual desire arising, pause for 60 seconds instead of immediately seeking release or distraction. Feel where the energy is in your body. Ask, what's the most important thing I could create right now? Take one action toward that thing while the energy is alive. Even 5 minutes of action while energized is worth an hour of forced work. Do this at least 3 times per day. You're retraining your nervous system to automatically redirect creative energy toward your goals instead of dissipating it. Step 6. Evening impression. Before sleep, spend 5 to 10 minutes. Generate that same warm, alive energy through breath and awareness. Visualize tomorrow's success while feeling that energy in your body. Don't just see it. Feel it as if it's already happening. Your subconscious mind is most impressionable right before sleep. Hill said this impresses the subconscious with emotion, which is 1000x more powerful than repetition without feeling. Step 7. Creative sessions. 3 times per week, dedicate 60 to 90 minutes to what I call charged creation. Generate energy through the breathing technique. Now you're practiced. Get into that alive, aroused, excited state. Immediately begin working on your most important project. Stay in that energized state as long as possible. When you notice the energy dropping, take a break. Don't force work when you're depleted. That's old paradigm. New paradigm. Generate energy. Work while energized. Rest when depleted. Repeat. This is how Edison, Tesla, and Ford worked. They weren't disciplined in the traditional sense. They worked in bursts of intense, energized focus, fueled by transmuted sexual energy, then rested. Quality over quantity. Step 8. Relationship transmutation, if applicable. If you're in a relationship, teach your partner these principles. Create time for intimacy that doesn't always lead to completion. Build energy together, hold it. Talk about shared dreams while in that state. Make love with intention. Consciously directing the energy toward mutual goals. Have charged mastermind sessions. Discuss business, life strategy, while maintaining erotic energy between you. Recognize that passion in the bedroom and passion for success are the same energy. If you're single, focus on Step 9. Attraction field building. Single people have an advantage. Hill didn't talk about much. All that sexual energy is available for pure transmutation. Use it to build your business or creative work to unprecedented levels. Become magnetic by maintaining high vital energy. Attract a partner from a position of power rather than need. Many of Hill's examples were people who achieved massive success before finding partnership. precisely because they channeled all their sexual energy into creation. The key is intention, conscious direction, not suppression, but purposeful channeling. Step 10. Continuous awareness. By now, you should be aware of your energy state throughout the day. The goal is to maintain what Hill called controlled enthusiasm, a steady, elevated baseline of vital force. You're not manic or hyperactive, but you're alive, alert, ready, creative. This becomes your new normal. Step 11. Environment optimization. Ruthlessly design your environment to support high energy. Relationships that energize you, not drain you. Work that excites you, or quit and find what does. Media diet that inspires rather than depresses. Physical space that uplifts your vibration. Daily habits that generate rather than deplete. Hill found that millionaires unconsciously, or consciously, arranged their entire lives to support sustained high energy. Everything was a question of, does this feed my life force or drain it? Step 12. Manifestation integration. Now you bring this all together for maximum manifestation power. Morning. Generate energy. Plus, set intention. Plus, take action. Throughout day. Redirect every surge of sexual energy toward your goals. Evening. Impress subconscious with charged visualization. Weekly. Review what's manifesting and adjust. Your manifestation practice is no longer separate from your life. Your entire existence becomes a continuous act of conscious creation, fueled by your most powerful energy source. Step 13. Advanced techniques. Once you've mastered the basics, explore. Breath retention techniques to build energy. Look into pranayama, particularly practices like brahmacharya. Physical exercises that build and circulate energy. Yoga, qigong, certain martial arts. Extended periods of conscious transmutation. Some people do 30, 90-day intensive practices. Partner practices like tantra, if you're in a relationship. But don't jump to advanced techniques before mastering basics. That's like trying to run before you can walk. Step 14. Make it automatic. The ultimate goal is to reach a point where transmutation is automatic. You no longer think about it. You just naturally redirect creative energy toward your goals. You maintain a high baseline of vital force. You're consistently magnetic, attractive, successful. This typically takes 6 to 12 months of consistent practice, but you'll see results much sooner. Most people report significant changes within the first month. Step 15. Share and multiply. Hill's mastermind principle states that when 2 or more people align their mental and emotional energy toward a common goal, they create power exponentially beyond what either could generate alone. Once you've mastered transmutation, find others who understand it. Create mastermind groups where everyone is operating at this level. The results become almost supernatural. Hill included warnings in his chapter that most people skip. Pay attention to these. Never suppress transmutation is not suppression. If you try to simply not think about sex or force yourself to ignore sexual desire, you'll create neurosis, anxiety, and potentially harm your health. The energy must be redirected, not denied. There's a huge difference. Suppression creates pressure. Transmutation creates power. Avoid depletion sources. Hill specifically warned against pornography and meaningless sexual encounters because they discharge energy without any creative purpose. You're literally bleeding your power away. He said that sex dissipation was one of the major causes of failure. Modern neuroscience confirms this. The dopamine cascade from pornography can deplete motivation for days. Respect the power. This is not a parlor trick or a life hack. You're working with the most fundamental force in nature, the same energy that creates life itself. Treat it with respect. Use it for constructive purposes. Hill warned that people who misuse this power end up worse off than if they'd never learned it. Physical health matters. You can't transmute energy you don't have. Basic health principles still apply. Adequate sleep, good nutrition, exercise, stress management. Hill noted that all the millionaires he studied maintained excellent physical health because they understood their bodies were the vehicles for their power. This takes practice. Don't expect to master this in a week. It's a skill like any other. You'll have days where it works beautifully and days where you struggle. That's normal. Consistency over time is what creates results. Hill said most people gave up too soon and never experienced the full power of the technique. Now, here's where this gets controversial, and I want to address it head-on because I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like pseudoscience. Look, I get it. When Hill wrote about this in 1937, he had no neuroscience to back him up. He was writing from observation and intuition. But now, we have brain scans, we have hormone studies, we have research on motivation, creativity, and flow states that validates everything Hill observed. The same neural pathways that light up during sexual arousal also light up during creative breakthroughs. The same neurotransmitters, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, are involved in both sexual pleasure and achievement satisfaction. The same energy systems in your body that drive reproduction also drive creation in all its forms. Hill was describing biology. He just didn't have our modern terminology for it. This feels manipulative or weird. You're not manipulating anything. You're becoming conscious of energy that's already there. You're already producing sexual energy multiple times a day. You're already using it for something, usually unconsciously dissipating it. This teaching is about becoming aware of that process and directing it intentionally. Would you call it manipulative to learn how to direct your thoughts? To focus your attention? To manage your time? No. This is the same thing, just with your body's energy, instead of your mental focus. What about spiritual traditions that advocate celibacy? Hill addressed this. He studied both celibate spiritual leaders and sexually active businessmen. He found that both groups could master transmutation. The celibates, like Tesla, transmuted all their sexual energy into creative work. The sexually active ones transmuted some of it while maintaining healthy relationships. The key wasn't celibacy versus non-celibacy. The key was consciousness, intentional direction. Many celibate monks produce nothing of worldly value despite all that energy, because they're suppressing rather than transmuting. Many sexually active people produce amazing things, because they're conscious about how they direct their life force. It's not what you do with your body. It's what you do with your consciousness. This seems disrespectful to women or objectifying. Actually, Hill's research included women, though he didn't write about them as extensively, 1930s social norms. But he specifically noted that women who understood this principle were often more successful than men at applying it. Why? Because women are generally more in tune with their bodies and emotional states. This isn't about objectification. It's about self-understanding. It's about recognizing your own power source and learning to direct it. If anything, it's the opposite of objectification. It's about becoming the subject of your own life, rather than the object of random circumstances. I tried this, and it didn't work. How long did you try? Hill said most people give up after a few attempts. This is a skill. It requires practice. You wouldn't try to play piano for a week and say, "It doesn't work." You'd recognize you need to develop the skill over time. Also, did you actually apply the principles, or did you just think about them? There's a massive difference between intellectual understanding and embodied practice. You have to actually do the energy generation, the redirection, the consistent application. And finally, did you address the leaks in your life? You can't fill a bucket with holes in it. If you're simultaneously trying to generate and transmute energy while also depleting yourself through poor habits, toxic relationships, and unconscious discharge. Of course, it won't work. Leave a comment below. Do you think sexual energy transmutation is the missing piece in manifestation teaching? Or am I completely off base here? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Before we go to the final summary, let me tell you about the 3 biggest mistakes people make when they first try sexual energy transmutation. Because if you make these mistakes, you'll quit before you see results. Mistake number 1. Trying to force it. You can't force energy transmutation through willpower alone. It's more like surfing than like pushing. You wait for the wave, sexual energy arising. You catch it at the right moment, awareness and pause, and you ride it. Redirect toward your goal. If you try to create the wave through sheer force, you'll exhaust yourself. Hill said the most successful practitioners had a light touch. They weren't straining or struggling. They were aware, intentional, and then they let the energy flow where they directed it. Like water following a channel you've carved, not water you're trying to push uphill. Mistake number 2. Expecting instant results. Some people get immediate results. I've seen it happen. But most people need 2 to 4 weeks of consistent practice before they notice significant changes, and 3 to 6 months before it becomes natural. The people who succeed are the ones who commit to 90 days minimum. They say, I'm going to apply these principles every single day for 90 days, and then I'll evaluate whether it works. They don't quit after a week because they didn't manifest $1 million. Remember, Hill's Millionaires spent years mastering this, often without even knowing what they were doing. You have the advantage of conscious knowledge, but you still need to put in the time. Mistake number 3. Doing it alone. Hill's mastermind principle is crucial here. When you combine sexual energy transmutation with the mastermind principle, 2 or more people aligned toward a common goal, you multiply the power exponentially. Find others who understand these principles. Create a mastermind group. Share your experiences. Support each other. The people who get the best results are almost never doing this in isolation. If you're in a relationship, teach your partner. If you're single, find a business partner or friend who gets it. Create that mastermind alliance. The results will blow your mind. Now, there's one more thing Hill revealed in Chapter 11 that could literally double the effectiveness of everything I've just shared, and I'm going to tell you what it is in the final section. All right, we've covered a lot in this video. Let me bring it all together and give you the final piece that makes everything else work. Here's what you now know that 99% of people will never understand. Sexual energy is not separate from creative energy, manifestation energy, or success energy. It's all the same life force, just directed at different targets. You've been trying to manifest your dreams while ignoring the most powerful energy source you possess. That stops today. The millionaires, inventors, and leaders Napoleon Hill studied didn't have special genetics or advantages you don't have. They had one thing. They learned to transmute sexual energy into creative power. Some did it consciously. Some did it unconsciously, but they all did it. You now have the complete system. Generate energy through breath and awareness. Recognize when sexual desire arises during your day. Redirect it immediately toward your goals through conscious intention. Take action while energized. Impress your subconscious before sleep with charged visualization. Make this a lifestyle, not just a technique. This is not theory. This is not metaphysics. This is applied biology. You're learning to conduct the electricity that's already running through your body. First, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because I'm going to be releasing advanced techniques on this topic that build on everything you learned today. The next video covers the breathing techniques that multiply the power of transmutation by 10x. Second, comment below with one thing. Which part of this system are you going to implement today? Are you going to start with morning energy generation, instant redirection during your day, evening visualization? Tell me in the comments, and I'll personally respond with specific guidance for your situation. Third, and this is the most important one, actually do this. Don't just watch this video and move on. Don't be the person who collects information but never applies it. Napoleon Hill said that knowledge is only potential power. It becomes actual power when it's organized and directed toward a definite purpose. You now have knowledge that most people will never possess. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Here's the last piece I promised you. In Chapter 11, Hill wrote something that most people read right past. He said that when sexual energy is transmuted and combined with faith, it makes direct contact with infinite intelligence, what we might call the universal mind, source energy, or the quantum field. Translation: when you generate that peak state of creative sexual energy and direct it toward your goals with absolute faith, you're not just working with your own power anymore. You're tapping into something much bigger. You're aligning your personal energy with universal energy. That's when miracles happen. That's when impossible things become possible. This is the real secret of manifestation. It's not about vision boards or affirmations or hoping the universe delivers. It's about generating the most powerful electromagnetic field you can, sexual energy, directing it with laser focus, your burning desire, charging it with emotion, transmutation, and then connecting to the field of infinite possibilities, faith. That's what the millionaires did. That's what the inventors did. That's what every great achievement in human history has been built on, whether the creators knew it or not. And now you know it. So here's my final question for you. Are you going to be the person who watches this video, thinks that's interesting, and goes back to struggling with manifestation the hard way? Or are you going to be the person who recognizes that you just received a master key to success, takes this information seriously, and commits to 90 days of consistent application? Because if you do, if you actually apply these principles with the dedication they deserve, your life will be unrecognizable 90 days from now. Not because of magic, because you'll finally be operating at full power instead of 20%. Your transformation starts right now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Right now. Take a deep breath. Feel the life force in your body. Recognize that you are sitting on a gold mine of creative power that you've been unconsciously wasting your entire life. As of this moment, that changes. You now know what Napoleon Hill was too afraid to say directly. You know what the millionaires discovered. You know the secret that connects biology, psychology, spirituality, and success into one unified system. The only question left is, will you use it? Subscribe, comment, apply, and I'll see you in the next video where we take this even deeper. Remember what Hill said. The person who has learned to control and direct the emotion of sex is capable of achieving whatever they desire in life. That person can be you, starting today.